What exactly makes you human? Buddhist perspective. What does it truly mean to be human? Across history, many answers have been offered. Aristotle spoke of the human being as a rational animal. Descartes reduced the human experience to thought itself, saying, "I think, therefore I am." Modern science often describes humans in biological terms: genetic codes, brain activity, and survival instincts shaped by evolution. These ideas may sound convincing, but they often leave us with a feeling that something is missing. The Buddhist tradition speaks in a very different way. The Buddha never defined a human by a permanent essence, a soul, or an unchanging identity. Instead, he explained that what we call a person is a flow of conditions, constantly forming and dissolving. Nothing stands still. Nothing belongs to a self that can be held forever. As the Dhammapada says, all conditioned things are impermanent. All phenomena are not self. At a conventional level, being human means being born into the human realm, which the Buddha described as a rare opportunity. The Dhammapada also reminds us, hard to gain is the human state. Life as a human is valuable because it balances joy and pain in a way that allows wisdom and compassion to grow. At a deeper level, the Buddha explained that what we call a human is simply the 5 aggregates of body and mind. And at the most practical level, he once said in the Kulavadala Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya, "Where there is clinging, one is spoken of as a being." A human, then, is not a fixed identity, but the dynamic play of body, mind, and attachment. This perspective shifts the question. Instead of asking, "What is the essence of being human?" Buddhism asks, "What are the processes that give rise to this human life, and how do they unfold?" It is here that we begin to see the body and the mind as moving parts of a larger whole. Part 1. The body and mind as aggregates. The Buddha explained that what we call a person is nothing more than 5 aggregates, known in Pali as the Panchakanda: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. They create the appearance of a human being, yet none of them, taken alone or together, can rightly be called a lasting self. In the Anattalakkhana Sutta, taught to the first 5 disciples soon after his awakening, the Buddha examined each aggregate. Form is not self, for it is subject to birth, aging, and death. Feeling is not self, for it arises and vanishes without command. Perception is not self, for it shifts from moment to moment. Mental formations are not self, for they are conditioned by countless causes. Even consciousness, often mistaken for a soul, is not self, because it depends on conditions and ceases when those conditions end. The Buddha summarized this truth with direct clarity. "This is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself." To see the aggregates only as separate pieces, however, would still be incomplete. They are deeply interdependent, woven together like threads of a single fabric. When you take a breath, the body that draws air is form. The pleasant sensation of ease is feeling. The recognition, this is an in-breath, is perception. The choice to stay with the breath is mental formation. And the knowing of the whole process is consciousness. All 5 operate together in a single moment. There is no hidden owner directing them, only a network of conditions supporting one another. This vision breaks down the illusion of an inner controller. What appears as I is simply the cooperation of processes. David Hume, many centuries later, described the self as a bundle of perceptions, which echoes the Buddhist understanding. Modern neuroscience, too, shows that the sense of I is built by the brain to organize experience, not discovered as a permanent entity. Recognizing this is not about denying life, but about seeing it as it truly is. When the body is understood as form, we relate to aging and illness with less fear. When feelings are known as passing signals, we do not need to obey them blindly. When thoughts and judgments are seen as movements of perception and formation, we stop mistaking them for absolute truth. And when consciousness is seen as a stream, we are freed from the belief in an eternal soul. This understanding brings balance. We loosen the grip of pride and self-centered fear. We can respond with clarity rather than clinging. The Buddha's teaching on the aggregates does not devalue human life. It reveals its dynamic and open nature. A human being is not a fixed entity, but a process. And within this process lies the possibility of freedom. What is formed by conditions can be reshaped by wisdom and compassion. Seeing this, the meaning of being human becomes not a burden of self, but an opportunity for awakening. Part 2. The Six Senses and the Human World. When the Buddha explained that a person is nothing more than the five aggregates, he also showed how these aggregates interact with the world. Human life does not exist in isolation. It unfolds through constant contact with the surroundings. This contact happens through what the Buddha called the six sense bases: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Through these doors, the world enters, and from these encounters, the feeling of living as a human is shaped. The moment the eye meets a visible form, or the ear meets a sound, or the mind meets a thought, there is contact. From contact, feeling arises, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. This simple step is the seed of the human experience. But what comes next is what often binds us. When we fail to see feeling clearly, craving quickly follows. Pleasant feelings can grow into desire, unpleasant feelings into aversion, and neutral feelings into confusion. The Buddha described this chain in the teachings on dependent origination. Contact gives rise to feeling, feeling gives rise to craving, and craving leads to clinging. This is not abstract theory, but the ordinary rhythm of daily life. A kind word makes us smile and cling to approval. A harsh word makes us burn inside, and a dull moment leaves us restless. The Buddha once gave a short teaching to 𝐏𝐻𝐻𝐻, a wandering ascetic who asked for instruction. He told him, in a teaching recorded in the Udana, "In the seen, there is only the seen. In the heard, only the heard. In the sensed, only the sensed. In the cognized, only the cognized." With these simple words, he pointed to a truth that cuts through confusion. We do not suffer because of what is seen or heard. We suffer because of the stories we add on top. When the mind adds, "this is me," or "this is mine," or "this should not be," then the raw contact of life becomes a burden. Modern science supports this understanding. Research in neuroscience shows that perception is not just passive reception, but active construction. The brain predicts what it expects to see, hear, or feel, and then fills in the details. That is why optical illusions trick us so easily, and why two people can walk through the same street, but experience it in completely different ways. The Buddhist insight and scientific research both suggest the same lesson. We do not live in the world as it is. We live in the world as it is shaped by the mind. Philosophers also spoke about this. The Stoics reminded us to separate impressions from judgments. An impression itself is not harmful. It is our judgment that decides whether it will disturb the mind. Taoist thought expresses something similar, urging us to move with the flow of nature, instead of forcing reality into our expectations. Buddhism meets both of these views, yet gives them a sharper edge. Impressions arise and fade, but the problem begins when craving attaches itself to them. For this reason, the human experience is not simply defined by what we sense, but by how we respond to what is sensed. Feelings that arise from contact are not commands we must follow. They are signals that can be met with awareness. When awareness is present, a pleasant feeling does not have to lead to attachment. An unpleasant feeling does not have to turn into anger, and a neutral feeling does not have to become dullness. This is where freedom begins, not in controlling the outer world, but in understanding the inner process of how the world touches us and how we answer back. Seeing this clearly changes the quality of being human. Life no longer feels like a constant push and pull of likes and dislikes. Instead, it becomes a space where awareness can meet each impression as it is. The senses, then, are not traps, but gateways. They reveal that the world we live in is shaped moment by contact, feeling, and craving. And when craving is not given the final word, the senses become doors, not of bondage but of wisdom. Part 3. Intention and Ethics as the Core of Humanity. When the Buddha spoke about human life, he never reduced it to body, senses, or even to consciousness itself. These are conditions that shape our existence, but they do not define what is most distinct about being human. What truly sets us apart is the way we respond. We are not only beings who sense and feel, but beings who choose. The Buddha expressed this in a simple and decisive way in the Anguttara Nikaya. It is volition, monks, that I call karma. In other words, the force that carries weight, that shapes the future, is not what we passively receive, but what we actively intend. This teaching changes how we understand human dignity. Being human is not about bloodline, social rank, or even species. In the Vasetha Sutta, from the Sutta Nipata, the Buddha explained to two young men from different castes, "Not by birth is one a noble person. By deeds one becomes noble." This was a radical statement in his time, but it remains deeply relevant today. Humanity is not a fixed identity we inherit. It is an ethical quality that can grow or fade depending on our choices. This is why the Buddha emphasized qualities of the heart that can be cultivated without limit. The Brahmaviharas, loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity, are not lofty ideals reserved for saints. They are practical trainings that show what it means to live as a full human being. In the Karaniya Metta Sutta, the discourse on loving kindness, the Buddha offered an image that still touches listeners across cultures. As a mother would protect her only child with her life, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. This is not sentimental language, but a reminder that the measure of humanity is found in the willingness to extend care beyond the narrow limits of self and tribe. Other traditions echo this insight. Immanuel Kant argued that people must always be treated as ends, never merely as means. The African philosophy of Ubuntu teaches, "I am because we are," pointing to the deep interdependence of human life. Buddhism resonates with these voices, yet grounds its message in something both practical and radical. Our intentions can be trained, and by training them, we reshape the very meaning of being human. Modern research in psychology and neuroscience confirms what the Buddha pointed out centuries ago. Studies show that when people practice compassion meditation or even simple acts of kindness, their brain patterns shift, their stress levels decrease, and their behavior changes in measurable ways. These findings are not just scientific curiosities. They show that ethics is not abstract. It leaves traces in body, mind, and society. What emerges is a picture of the human being as an ethical agent. We are not defined by what we sense or by the conditions that shape us at birth, but by the quality of intention that guides our actions. A harsh word spoken in anger, a dishonest act done for gain, a careless gesture that harms another, these do not just pass away, they leave an imprint on our character and on the world we live in. Likewise, a kind word, a generous act, or even a silent choice to withhold harm. These too leave imprints, but ones that uplift and dignify human life. In this way, to be human is not simply to exist, but to take responsibility. The body may grow old, the senses may bring pleasant or painful impressions, but the direction of a human life depends on the seed of intention planted in each moment. This is why the Buddha described the human state as rare and precious, not because it guarantees virtue, but because it offers the chance to cultivate it. Within this fleeting form and this shifting mind lies the extraordinary capacity to choose, to guide, and to transform. And this capacity, more than anything else, is what gives depth and weight to the word human. Part 4. Consciousness and the Path of Growth. The Buddha did not speak of human life as something left to chance. He showed that while conditions shape our existence, we also hold the ability to guide those conditions with clarity and purpose. To live as a human being is not simply to drift with impulses or habits, but to train the mind so that body, speech, and thought move in the direction of wisdom and compassion. This training is expressed most clearly in the Noble Eightfold Path. It is not a rigid code but a living framework that brings balance and discipline. Right view begins with seeing things as they truly are, impermanent, unsatisfactory, and without a fixed self. From this understanding, right intention follows, turning the mind toward goodwill, harmlessness, and letting go of grasping. These foundations lift human life beyond mechanical reactions and open it to genuine clarity. The Buddha's guidance extended into the most practical parts of life. Right speech calls for words that are true, beneficial, and timely. In the Ambalataka Rahulavada Sutta, he advised his son Rahula that words which are false, harmful, or poorly timed should not be spoken. Right action and right livelihood extend this principle to how we live and work, showing that to be human is not only to survive, but to live with responsibility and care. But ethics alone is not enough. The Buddha emphasized that good choices need the support of mental discipline. Right effort means abandoning harmful states and nurturing wholesome ones. Right mindfulness brings steady attention to the body, feelings, mind, and mental qualities. In the Anapanasati Sutta, he explained how simple awareness of breathing can calm the mind and deepen understanding. Right concentration completes the training, giving stability and clarity so that consciousness can see reality without distortion. These are not distant ideals, but natural capacities of the mind when it is patiently cultivated. The Dhammapada captures the heart of this training in a single verse. Avoid evil, do good, purify the mind. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. Avoiding harm recognizes our impact on others. Doing good nurtures generosity and kindness, and purifying the mind frees us from confusion and craving. In these few words, the essence of human growth is laid out. Other traditions echo this insight. The Stoics spoke of examining each day to measure one's actions against virtue. Confucian thought stressed self-cultivation through practice and learning. Modern psychology shows how habits shape character through small, repeated acts. Yet the Buddhist teaching goes further, showing that this training can lead beyond ordinary improvement to the very ending of suffering. To live as a human being is not only to possess a body and a rational mind. It is to recognize the capacity to shape one's own heart and consciousness. Every breath, every word, and every action can be directed toward clarity or confusion, kindness or harm. The Buddha's path reminds us that we are not helpless before our conditions. We can guide them. And when the mind is trained with care, the meaning of being human finds its fullest expression, not in clinging to identity, but in walking a path that opens the door to freedom.